So I'm Phillip. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Spice AI. Prior to founding Spice, I spent almost a decade working for Microsoft/GitHub, working on some of the large kind of infrastructure projects that they have there, including the ones you see here. So I have some experience building for developers and also some experience building kind of large infrastructure projects. And Spice is an early stage startup, as well as a protocol labs portfolio company. We're actually members of the Compute Over Data working group. My co-founder, Luke, actually gave a presentation at, I think it was the 6th community call for the Compute Over Data working group. So if you're interested in what you see here, you can go and deep dive into that and learn more about our platform. And at Spice, our mission is to make building data and AI-driven apps easy. We launched the preview of our data platform, Spice.xyz, in April of this year. Which is our data and AI infrastructure platform that I'll talk about in a second. So building an experience, a data-driven experience on blockchain using blockchain data is difficult. It's very hard, and we see a lot of companies have been emerging in the space that need blockchain data to power their experiences. But it doesn't really make sense for all of these companies that are coming out in the space to build the same infrastructure over and over that basically do the same thing. And one of the reasons why it's difficult is you're forced to kind of build and operate your own blockchain nodes, which have a tendency to be very unreliable. You have to build your own ETL pipelines. You have to manage data lakes, data warehouses, query systems, like a bunch of infrastructure that don't really add value to your core business. And you have to really understand the details of the chains that you're working with. So you have to know how to decode logs, events, transactions, things like that. And that's just for one chain. In order to support multiple chains, you have to basically multiply that out for each chain that you want to support. You could offload running the nodes to an infrastructure provider like Alchemy or Infura, but trust us, we've tried that. It doesn't work when you're trying to index all of the data on the chain. So let's imagine, hypothetical example, you're an NFT marketplace and you want to provide AI-powered recommendations for your customers. So when a user comes to your platform, they connect their wallet, and you want to be able to get a list of all of the NFTs that they've traded and plug that in somewhere and get out a list of personalized recommendations that they would be interested. So how would we go about that? So first, you will need a way to actually get, like when they connect their wallet, you'll need a way to quickly get all of the NFT trades that user's done. And unless you've pre-indexed the transaction data, that's not possible, right? And so you have to have pre-indexed all the transactions. You have to know which transactions are actually NFT trades. And then once you have that, you can finally have the data that you can plug into your model, which is the next hurdle of how do you actually train this model? So the conventional wisdom for AI and ML processing is that the more data that you throw at the model when it's training, the better it can get. So if you want to provide the best, personalized recommendation that you can, you need to give a lot of data for it to train on. And so again, this goes back to the problem of unless you've indexed all of the data on the blockchain, it's going to take a while for you to get that data. We've actually, at Spice, we tried to do this with a small kind of toy project when we first were looking into this, and it just we spent most of our time just trying to get the data. And so our understanding of the difficulty in this problem is kind of what led us to build the Spice.xyz platform. And that's just for working with on-chain data. One trend that we're starting to see is a lot of data that was previously on-chain is moving off-chain and just being pointed to by the on-chain data. I actually had the chance to talk with Matt Ober, who's the co-founder of Pinata, earlier this week, and we were talking about how, it's just so expensive to store. I think it's to store 1 gigabyte of data on the Ethereum blockchain, it's like $200,000 or something crazy. It's just infeasible, and so and it's just going to keep increasing over time. And so we're starting to see this trend of things that were being put on chain is now just being put off chain. And kind of one good example of this is the difference between the ERC 721 NFT token standard and the ERC 1155 token standard. So here's the ERC 721 token standard. You can see here that even just small things like the name and symbol were previously stored in the state that's on-chain, and you could query it from on-chain. But on the ERC1155 token spec, all you get is a URI that points to somewhere off-chain. And then once you have that thing that off-chain, you basically get a JSON blob that has that metadata. Oftentimes this is stored in IPFS, but sometimes it can be stored in S3 buckets or what have you. And so for really powering an experience that works with blockchain data, you need to have a solution that can deal with both the on-chain data and combine it with the off-chain data as well. And so that's kind of why we're really excited to work with the Bacalhau team and the Compute Over Data Working Group, because we can leverage their experience of being able to provide compute over data stored in IPFS, and we're working to make Spice kind of the easiest way to build an application that leverages both on and off-chain data. And so now I'm going to deep dive a little bit into some of the real-world use cases that we're seeing at Spice of what our customers are doing and what they need. But first, to set a little bit of context, I'll explain a little bit about how we think about where the value in blockchain data comes from. And we've used the analogy before that blockchain data is kind of like crude oil in that it's not very useful by itself. You have to kind of process it or enrich it into these higher order data sets, which we call enriched data sets, which could be things like DEX trades, NFT trades, liquidity pools, et cetera. And then once you have those kind of higher order data sets, then you can apply data science and ML onto those data sets to get to the really interesting things that you can actually build applications on, such as recommendations like we talked about, or fraud detection or anomaly detection. And so the first example of one of our customers is Vimeo, and so they believe that Web3 needs to be a safer and more trusted place for users to engage, and they're working on building things like Web3 credit scores, smart detection, and wallet fraud detection. And they use on-chain data that's provided by Spice to power their ML detection scenarios. And it was funny, we had a call with them recently, and they were talking about how before Spice, they had this infrastructure diagram that was super complex and involved a bunch of indexing and storage systems. And then after Spice, it got massively simplified to just like Spice and then their ML processing pipeline. Another one of our customers is MetaStitch, and they're building a community growth platform for brands in Web3. And so the key idea here is that understanding communities allows brands to know which communities that their customers are engaging with and where opportunities might be to kind of expand out into related communities. And so you can see here on screen a page from their product that's actually powered by Spice data from our NFT owners data set, where they can identify similarities between different communities, which they do here by NFT collections based on the wallet ownership. And so last but not least is Yakoa. They provide NFT authenticity and fraud detection services. So imagine, big brands want to make sure that their IP is not being infringed upon, and marketplaces don't want to list content that is infringing. And so they provide services to help those companies do that. And they leverage Spice data to actually identify all of the NFTs that live on chain. I think there's something like 90 million or something NFTs on Ethereum. And so we index all of them and we make it available for query. And Yakoa actually takes that data from Spice, and then they go out to where the NFT data lives, whether it's in IPFS or in other Web2 storage solutions, and then they run it through their ML processing pipelines. And so I'll show a little demo. Hopefully it works. We'll be running a live demo of taking some data from Spice and running on a Bacalhau. The demo scenario here is going to be showcasing how we would enhance our current offering in Spice to allow processing of off-chain data. Currently, we just have on-chain data. And the scenario is basically taking a list of NFTs that you care about in some way, from getting that from Spice, then using Bacalhau to process those images that are stored in IPFS into a collage. This is very similar to the Yakoa scenario, and so they actually helped us prepare this demo as well. But instead of creating collage, they go out and do further processing in their ML pipeline. So yeah, so much of the code for this demo was actually contributed by Akoa, and this, major thanks for them for helping us prepare this portion of the talk. All right, so this is Spice. I'm going to log in really quickly. Because we are a developer platform, we currently offer a login with GitHub. Once we go to GA, we'll have more options there. And currently, if you try to log in, it's going to be behind a wait list. Just let us go onto the Discord and let us know that you came from the talk, and we'll let you in. You can start playing around with it. So I'll go over here into my app. And so what you see here is just kind of a simple SQL interface where you can run some SQL commands and get some data out. This is actually not our main kind of experience that we want to provide to customers. We expect people to just use the API that we provide. We have an SDK here, which you can see here in just like 3 lines of Python code. You can have your data in Pandas or NumPy or wherever you're doing your processing. And this is enabled through our Apache Arrow APIs. And so for this demo, I'm going to take the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT collection. So this is the address here that I just pulled by going to OpenSea. And I'll just run this query in just a few seconds. I'll be able to get all 10,000 of the Bored Ape NFTs, and I can find the current owners of all of those 10,000s in just a few seconds using Spice. And so let's say that I'm really interested in this one, 5306. And so I want to find all of the NFTs that the current owner of this NFT has in their collection and make a collage from that. So the way I would do that in Spice is I would say, okay, well, I'm only interested in token ID 5306. Run that query. And in just a couple seconds, I'll get back the owner information from that query. Taking a couple of seconds. Okay, let me retry that. Okay, anyway, so once we got that query, we would get back the owner information. Yeah, so we got this back. And so we can take the current owner of the NFT, and then I can basically, with the same data set, our NFT owners data set, I can query, okay, what are all the NFTs that this current owner possesses? And so I'll run that query in Spice. It'll take a few seconds, and then I'll get back. There should be around 17 that I found from earlier. And normally what we would do is once you use this interface to kind of explore the data that you're interested in, we have here a data set reference here of all the different data sets for the chains that we support. And then once you're kind of interested in, you find the query that you're interested in, you would put this into your application using our SDKs and that's how you would integrate Spice into your application. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to download this through CSV. And so we'll be able to show you that data here directly. And so while it's downloading, I'll come over to the code here and start explaining what we're going to do. So the way that this demo is going to work is, so I just showed using Spice to get the NFTs that are owned by a wallet. But I need to next call the token URI. And so in Ethereum, there is a token URI function on the smart contract. So like if I call that function with the token ID that I'm interested in, I will get back this IPFS link that I need to then pull off. And so if I actually show you what's in this IPFS, so I'll just resolve this. So this is the content ID of that link from the token URI. And if I actually show you what is in here, it's just a JSON file. So I mentioned before that data is moving off chain. So this is kind of one example where the image link is not actually stored on chain. It's a metadata file that points to the image link. So we actually need to do 2 things. We need to first run a job in Berkeley how that parses that metadata out from all of these different metadata JSON files. And then once we have the actual IPFS links that have the image data, we can run a second job that will go and create our collage for us. So here's the result file that I just downloaded from Spice. And so we can see here the token address here is on the left, first column, and then the token ID is the second one. And so what I'll do here to run the Backly-How job is I have a little helpless script that will get the metadata URIs by calling the Ethereum smart contract. So, this is going and calling the Ethereum smart contract. We filter out the ones that are not IPFS right now, and we'll just work with the ones that are in IPFS. And then you see here that some of these are files within a folder that's stored in IPFS, so we actually need to go and resolve all of the content IDs of this, so I'll do that now. So I have another one here, and so this will resolve, I'll show you the code for this. So this is actually resolving the content IDs of these into the actual IPFS content ID, and then dumping what I need to pass into Backly-How into these volume arguments. So I will copy this. And so these are the commands that we actually need to mount this data into Backly-How so that the job can access it. And then I'll come into Docker run. And then I'll run this first job. This will actually parse out the metadata. And so while that's running, I'll kind of show what this is doing. So in this parse metadata script, all we're doing is just scanning all the files that are in this directory and then extracting out that image URI that I showed here. So we're extracting out this image URI for all of the images, and it's writing it to this file called image-uris.pickle. So I'll go ahead and get this job. Hopefully it completes relatively quickly. Yep. Cool, and so now I have this job completed, so I can take out these image URIs, and then I can move on to the next step. So now I've got all the links to IPFS for all the images that I'm going to create the collage out of. Now I'm actually going to run a Backly-How job that will assemble these into a collage. I think this would be a lot easier if we had the pipelining thing, which I think is coming soon for Backly-How. But I'll go ahead and run that now. Generate volume args, and we're going to use image uris.pickle. Cool, and then if we look at this, so we have, similar to what before, we have these commands that will actually allow us to attach this to the Backly-How job. So I'll run another Backly-How job here, and then pass in the command that actually will create the collage. It's cool, and so the way that this script is running is very similar to the first one. It's going to loop through all of the images that have been mounted into that directory. It will format them into kind of the same size, and then output this collage called collage.jpg. And if the demo gods are willing, oh, it ran. And so now we have here the collage of all of the NFTs from the data that we got in Spice. So cool. So I hear you saying, okay, like, so what? Like, it's a collage of NFTs. But I think what really becomes compelling about that is if you're needing to run this compute over millions and millions of NFTs, there's 90 million NFTs stored in Ethereum. Like, you can't really do this in a centralized way where it's very difficult to do it in a centralized way where you're pulling the data out of IPFS to run this job on it. And so that's where the Backly-How, like being able to bring the compute to where the data is very interesting. And you should also think of the demo I showed as kind of an inside look at how we might enable this at Spice. One of our goals at Spice is to kind of integrate the Backly-How experience directly into the product. And so where you might have something that looks more like this, where all of the stuff that I just showed you is kind of contained within Spice, and all you would need to do is just upload some NFT processing job that needs to combine both on-chain and off-chain data, and then we would handle the scheduling and running of it for you. So yeah, so building on Building experiences on blockchain Web3 data is hard, but at Spice we're doing what we can to make it as easy as possible, and we're excited to do our part to contribute to the Compute Over Data initiative and make it as easy as possible for anyone to build great experiences on Web3 data. So yeah, thank you, and this is where you can find links to our projects and Discord and Twitter.